The Knicks ball movement revolution is here, and it is beautiful. We talk about it next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are locked on to the New York Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a New York City native and a credential media member that's been covering this team for a decade. He is XJ. He is the fantastic co-host of the Hot Hand Theory pod and also a New York City native. And this is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the country. And we thank you so much for tuning in each and every day. We would love if you would join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team. It is the single best way you can help us grow the show. And we are rapidly approaching 10,000. So we'd really appreciate getting there by the start of the new year. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, the New York Knicks blow out the Brooklyn Nets, 10th win in a row against the Nets. All that trash talk we had here, XJ, when they got Kevin Durant, when they got Kyrie Irving, when they traded for James Harden. What did it get you, Brooklyn? A lot of a rookie whose name I have not learned or care to learn how to pronounce yet, and Drake Powell, who looked pretty decent. And Michael Porter Jr. taking a bunch of shots. We'll talk about that, but more importantly, we'll talk about the ball movement revolution in Manhattan. The Knicks are playing the beautiful game, and it is a lot of fun. We'll talk about Mitchell Robinson just being physically overwhelming. I don't know if he gets enough respect for that, and possibly seeing the start of Jalen Brunson's final form. There's a little bit of point guard in his game these days. But XJ, I'll leave it to you. What was your biggest takeaway from this walloping of the Brooklyn Nets?
Oh, the clear biggest takeaway is exactly what you said. The Knicks ball movement. The Knicks are playing the style of basketball that this roster was specifically constructed for. It is like a glove. It is, by the way, I want to get one of those foam #1 fingers. So like when you say the thing about Locked On Network being #1, I can just wave that around.
It'd be great.
But it fits like that one would fit on my one finger.
That would probably be tax deductible for you. So I would go for it.
That's a great point. It absolutely would be. But the Knicks ball movement has been incredible. It's only getting better. Obviously, I do want to say, because I think I hear this in the fan base a lot, and you're listening to this right now, you might think this at times too, where it's like, oh, I mean, they did it to the Wizards. They did it to the Nets. Like, they're beating up on these bad teams. And that's totally true. And to me, I don't look at the outcome. I don't look at, they won the game by 36 points. That's not the most important factor. The most important factor is how they play. It's the process that we're looking at, that we're observing, what they're trying to do, what they're successfully doing on the court as far as their process of creating shots, not so much of what the outcomes are, that they're making shots, that everything's working perfectly because they're playing against teenagers and other guys who are journeymen around the league. No, I'm looking at that process, and the process is so good. To me, I think that this is so interesting, and I saw this stat that they brought up on the MSG broadcast. They talked about how many passes per game they had last season versus passes per game this season, and there was a big spike, obviously. But I would go further than that, and passes per game is a good proxy, but doesn't necessarily nail down exactly what they're doing as far as ball movement, but it helps to kind of just give you a broad sense of it. If we look back, not just at last year, but at the last 5 seasons for the Knicks under Tom Thibodeau, the passes per game was anywhere between 276 and 297 passes per game. And the 297 was kind of an outlier, to be honest with you. It was really nowhere near that in most cases. This season, they're at 310. Massive philosophical change, not just in terms of the outcomes. Again, it's in terms of that process. It is balanced. It is egalitarian. We're seeing the scoring be egalitarian. We're seeing the two best offensive weapons by the Knicks being leveraged in such a way to create really strong and effective offense. Not just that they get the scoring every time, and we'll talk about Jalen Brunson, and I've been so impressed with him. Obviously, Karl-Anthony Towns had a big scoring game, but those guys are being leveraged in a way to make everyone else better, not just with their own playmaking skill, but through the system. And the system is doing so much work on behalf of those guys to make the team better. And we're seeing guys like Jordan Clarkson thrive, like playing some of the best basketball of his career, which sounds kind of crazy. He's in year 12.
Yeah.
He's playing some of the best basketball of his career. We're seeing other guys really excel. Landry Shamet, a guy who's like been a journeyman, playing really, really good basketball. And of course, OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are now just shooting the complete lights out. And guess what? If that slows down a little bit, Karl-Anthony Towns has not gotten hot from three-point line yet. He will. He absolutely will. And so I'm just so encouraged by this style of basketball. To me, it's about that process. It's about what that means for moving forward. And I'm just excited to see them continuing to play this way, outcome independent.
Yeah, it is. It is just a joy. I know we have some the oldest listeners to our podcast. Shout out to my dad who got to enjoy the late 60s, 70s Knicks. I don't know if they've had an experience like this. I do think the 12-13 Knicks approach that to some extent. I do think the people probably take a shot when I say this because I reference it so often. The January 2024 Knicks, the brief 16-game look we got at them, had some of this in terms of the ball popping around and just five guys who fit together seamlessly. I have a hard time remembering where, regardless of what lineup on the floor, this team had such a clear-cut offensive identity. Like, I don't know how I find myself referencing Tibbs every single show, even when I promise myself not to. I think Tibbs did a special job building like a cultural identity and a fight throughout the roster that was there, like when this Knicks team was at their best every single minute. But in terms of just like a hyper-specific play style, like, and it feels like it's starting to sink in at a deeper level. To your point, yes, this was the Nets. Yes, it makes all of this easier. Like, it's fun to be unselfish. And I'm sure, XJ, you've played in some pickup games in your life that are like this, when the other team is overwhelmed. That's when I try to throw like the craziest passes I've ever thrown in my life. That's when I'm willing to always make the extra pass because I know I can get it back and score whenever. Like, it does make all of this easier. But what I loved about this game, after the Knicks and Mike Brown specifically were harangued for like not taking Chicago seriously enough last week and getting off to such a slow start in that one, like they came ready to play, but they came ready to play within the context of their identity. It would have been very easy to play selfish. It would have been very easy to hunt shots and dominate Brooklyn that way. And instead the Knicks were committed, like from the get-go, we're going to be pushing the ball down your throats. We're going to be making the extra pass over and over again. Jalen Brunson will establish himself individually, and then when he's blitzed, like we'll play out of the blitz consistently and make plays. You even see like one of the ones that really stood out to me. We got a lot of good Brunson Cat stuff in this game. There was one play, I think late first quarter, where Cat got it on the short roll, pumped out of a 3-pointer, and then like got into his drive from the corner and did like, he was a little bit slow to make the read, but did kind of like a pitter patter step, held onto his last foot, and then got it to the corner to Mikal Bridges for 3. And that is the drive and kick that was just consistently missing last year for Cat, partially because the Knicks just didn't have adequate spacing on the floor to make that pass feasible for him, partially because he's not very good at making that read. And you just see like a consistent, clear-cut effort from Cat to make that pass. You see a consistent, clear-cut effort from Cat. I think their first basket of the game, right, was Brunson to Cat, extra to Mikal Bridges. And there's still like meat on the bone, right? There's still more times where they could pass up good for great. But you're just seeing the entire roster do that consistently. And because of that, you're getting high quality shots. And that combined with just a torrid start to the season for Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. I'll look up the new numbers as we do this show, but they're probably both hovering. Like, I know Mikal is probably close to 50% from 3. OG's probably close to 45% at this point. Mikal from the corners might be approaching like 66, 67%. He looks like, I made this comp last year on nights he was hot. He looks like a poor man's Kevin Durant out there at times, just shooting out of advantages. And you just have this like elite group of play finishers. And when you combine that with pace and you combine that with unselfishness, it just leads to like an offense that should be as good as any in basketball. The Knicks coming out of this night, 4th in the NBA in net rating, in offensive rating. They're now 2nd in the NBA in offensive rating, 121.6. They're just a 10th of a point behind the Houston Rockets for 1st in the NBA. Yes, they're benefiting from a weak schedule, but that is a clear-cut indicator of the health of this basketball team right now.
Yeah, I love all of that, and I think that that's a really important note. So we look at I talked about this last season. I've talked about this really every season. I've talked about the Knicks, and we look at the data really early in the season. We could kind of throw it out, but like there are indicators that we can extrapolate from, and it's not necessarily, again, it's not results based. It's about the how of it. Jalen Brunson made such a great play that I think kind of went under the radar on the broadcast. He had a drive, and then he had a fake pass to Jordan Clarkson in the corner. Then he had a no-look bounce pass to Mikal Bridges, who finished it for a layup. And I just feel like this is, I don't want to segue into like the next thing we're going to talk about, but I feel like this is really enhancing the skill sets of the guys that they haven't been able to show off before. Jalen Brunson, I think, is an incredible passer. Oftentimes when you have skills that you have never gotten to show off, you're excited to do that. And when you know guys are moving, they're going to be in the right spots. They're going to be, you're going to be rewarded for making the right play that fits into the system, not based on the outcome. We saw Jalen Brunson miss a pass to the corner, and I think OG was kind of out of position. He was too far close to the break. And we heard Steve Novak on the broadcast say, Mike Brown's gonna not blame Jalen Brunson for that. He's gonna say, in my book, that's a turnover on OG Anunoby, not on Jalen Brunson, because Jalen Brunson's making the pass to the right spot. And so when you have that kind of system, culture, approach, and it's all really reinforced and foundational to what they're trying to do, that just feeds on itself. And that just creates these really positive feedback cycles that I think is going to translate in the future as we go through the season, 30, 40, 50 games later. And then we'll see where some of those data points lie. I think they're going to lie in a really good spot for the Knicks. But regardless, this is all extremely encouraging.
Well, let's continue down that thread, because I want to talk a little bit more about the version of Jalen Brunson that is emerging under Mike Brown and why this might be his final form and his best form yet. But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win, not just on game day, every day, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. We also want to tell you about our good friends over at GameTime. Basketball season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump just before checkout. It's so easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where GameTime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love that what you see is what you pay. No hidden fees at checkout. I don't know about you guys. Nothing raises my blood pressure like seeing the final price jump $80 to $100 when you're getting ready to check out. Plus, I can see exactly what my view looks like before I bought the tickets with their in-app seat feature. Their zone deals are also a game changer. You pick the section, GameTime picks your seats, and you save big. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. All right. I'm just going to let you pick up where you left off, man. Tell me a little bit more about what you're seeing from Jalen Brunson and why you think this might be the next step forward in his game.
This is like the biggest thing for me for this season so far. And there's so much going on. Obviously, we talked about a bunch throughout the season in this episode with the Knicks wins and their little losing streak and all of these things that we've talked about. The biggest story for the season right now for me is Jalen Brunson, his evolution and what he is becoming as a player and how it differs from how he's been before and what it shows about his versatility, his skill set, and his ability to elevate a team to heights that I think that maybe was in doubt before at different times, but just based on his style of play, not based on his level or skill or ability. And of course it's passing. Like we could talk about the passing, and there's been this idea for a while that Brunson is a bad passer, and It honestly, Gavin, it like gets under my skin. It like bothers me because I just believe this, and hopefully this doesn't come off the raw. I think it's like bad and shallow analysis to put this label on him as a bad passer, because he's obviously, to me, an excellent passer. And there's a B-ball index metric called passing versatility, and basically tries to estimate the diversity of passes that a player makes. So it just gives you a sense of whether that player can and does make all the types of passes. So passes out of pick and roll, kicks out of drives, bounce passes, lobs, etc., whatever. Jalen Brunson was 91st percentile the year before last year and 93rd percentile last year. You know who he was above in both of those seasons, Gavin?
Yeah, let me know.
I'll let you know right now. A guy named Tyrese Halliburton.
That's pretty good.
Another guy named Trae Young.
That's really good.
Another guy named Cade Cunningham.
Wow, it's great.
Another guy named Josh Giddey. Guys that are known as some of the elite passers in the game. And obviously this one stat, this one metric doesn't mean that he's a better passer than these guys. That's not what I'm saying, but there's a lot that goes into it in terms of this metric, in terms of like all of the positions that players are in that they can pass out of. But it does show that he can make all of the passes. So we just need to put it to bed. He has not made all the passes at the frequency that we'd love. You and I had talked about this in a recent episode with some of his actions with Towns. And to me, from a coaching standpoint, that must have been reinforced, or at the very least, he was not dissuaded from those decisions. And it was always, to me, again, very likely the case that a new coach would be able to help him change those decision processes. And we're seeing it already through 9 games. That is not a lot of time to make this significant a shift, and he's been incredible. The number of quick passes, hockey assists we're seeing from him, using his gravity to benefit others. I just think we need to stop being, this is probably strong, but stop being gaslit about players' deficiencies that may be there and that are actually being exacerbated by suboptimal coaching approaches, and just look at these guys for the skill sets that they have and recognize that they can leverage those skills in the right situation, under the right coaching staff, with the right system in place. Jalen Brunson is showing that. We're seeing this evolution where he has been an incredible passer, and that is nothing to say of his off-ball movement in terms of as a shooter. And before I throw it to you, the last thing I'll say is there was that one possession where Deuce McBride missed an open three. Josh Hart got an offensive rebound. He found Deuce again. Yeah. He found Deuce again in the corner, and then Deuce drove the ball to attack a closeout. Jalen Brunson, this on-ball elite isolation scorer that we know him to be, he was all the way, I think, maybe near the top of the key. He sprinted to the corner, anticipating Deuce getting into the paint, created the passing window for Deuce to make this pass to the corner, hit the three, got it and one. An additional foul on top of the three for a 4-point play. That is elite off-ball play. It just is. It's just elite off-ball shooting, movement shooter play. And Jalen Brunson is making these passes, being an incredibly unselfish, doing this off-ball work. He is evolving to his final form. I love how you said that. And to me, this is the best Jalen Brunson that I've seen so far.
I've been careful when putting that name out there, but he looked like Steph Curry on that play. Like that is the one guy in the NBA over the last decade who consistently makes that play, hits that shot, gets up and winks at the crowd after. And Jalen, like on a full sprint, just the footwork. I mean, like NBA players talk about this all the time. Like it is incredibly tight in that corner. It's why the Ray Allen shot against the Spurs like goes down as one of the best in NBA history, right? Like you have to be so on point to sprint, not go out of bounds, catch, rise up, get hit, still make it. It is like just 99th to 100th percentile level shot making. And it was amazing. And also just to your point, the fact that his inclination to do that is this quick under Mike Brown, like, speaks to his basketball IQ. For so many other guys, like even really smart players, it would take weeks and weeks and weeks of just building the muscle memory to make that play, because that's just not, I mean, maybe he did that at the high school level. Maybe he did that at Villanova. That is not a play. And maybe I'm wrong. And in Dallas, like off of Luka Doncic, he did do stuff like that off the ball. At least the last few years in the Knicks, like he's never really been asked to do that. And he is doing it at the highest possible level now. The next step is doing it more consistently, but that is really, really exciting. I find your analysis of his passing is really interesting to me. I have been lower on his passing historically. And I was not one of those people who said he was a bad passer. I think I've been pretty consistent saying he's a good, not great passer. And by the end of last year, I was kind of tipping towards, all right, he might be a very good passer. And I think that is still the tier I'd have him in. Like amongst similar sized guys, someone like Trey, I think just still has like a little bit more manipulation, is just a better lob thrower than Jalen is. Like that's the one area, like I think he'd still have to round out to be in that elite passing tier where you like talk about guys like Cade, guys like Luka, guys like Trey. I just think LeBron at a certain point, or just in a different universe in that capacity. LaMelo, your guy as well. That being said, like he's gotten so much better this year, and you nailed it. Like it's all about the inclination to me about getting off the ball quickly. And to me, that is Tyrese Halliburton's superpower, even more so than his raw vision, even more so than his creativity. It is the inclination when there is an advantage to recognize it instantly and execute off it instantly. And we've seen from Jalen, I think the number's at 4 now. Maybe it's only happened 3 times this year, but he's done this thing where he calls Mitchell Robinson up for a screen. He stares down Mitchell Robinson, and then he whips it into the opposite corner. And tonight, he didn't get the full version of that, but he kind of got like a half chub on it. He instead, like Mitch comes up, and OG's defender takes a step into the gap, and Brunson, without hesitating, without looking, just fires a laser to OG Anunoby. OG drives it, and that is actually what kicks off the sequence that ends with JB sprinting to the corner. That is like OG whips it to Deuce. Deuce misses the 3, and then the sequence you described plays out from there. But that all starts, like it's our two things, or your two things rather, are actually connected. It all starts with Jalen decisively getting off the ball. And that is something he did on occasion, but didn't do with great frequency under Tom Thibodeau. We're seeing it now. I think it is just such a game changer for him going forward. On top of that, and we saw this last year, just a consistent willingness to like give it up when he's blitzed. And it's not only with Cat. We saw with Clarkson, like at one point, Clarkson, and this is the thing for Mike Brown corner if we ever get to do it. Mike Brown is like, they're playing Pacers ball. He loves the ghost screens. Like Clarkson, little ghost screen for him, dives, his defender lingers, Brunson just hits him over the top. Clarkson, living at the rim in the second corner, drives for a layup. So it was a great Jalen game. On top of that, just some nasty handle. He sent the Nets rookie. I'll go for it. Yegor Gioman. I don't know, man. He's a nice.
That was good. That was good.
Thank you. I'd lie if I said I didn't Google the phonetics and still was not confident in it. Anywho, he sent him into like another universe on like a slow like Kyle Anderson style double crossover. Jalen Brunson is sick at basketball. You guys know that, but he's getting even better, and he is fitting perfectly into what Mike Brown wants him to be. When we come back, another guy who fits in perfectly, Mitchell Robinson, because he's just flat out one of the most dominant players in the NBA. We'll talk about it in just a sec right here on Locked On Knicks. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Again, my New York Giants are on the wrong end of it. It just feels like if your team is down to the Giants in the second half, you should put some money on them, and something good will probably happen despite the fact that Jackson Dart is absolutely sick. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we're going to wrap this one up because we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the country. He's XJ. I'm Gavin. What do you think of Mitchell Robinson's night? We were talking about it a little bit pre-show. I mentioned I have it's not even a theory, it's my opinion. I think Mitch is one of the most physically dominant players in the NBA. I think the playoffs this year and maybe before that in 2023 opened some people's eyes to it. I don't think because he just has zero skill as a scorer, he doesn't really get credit for it. But there is almost like Shaq and Giannis like element to his game where unless you're like a total freak of nature like him, like you were mentioning Jalen Duren before the show, Joel Embiid is someone who can battle with him on occasion. You are just going to get pushed on the rim. He's just going to get the rebound. And to me, on a night where like every other Knick like was in double figures, like he was the most dominant guy on the floor. Like Brooklyn, a night after Minnesota had no answer for him. Brooklyn just had zero answer for him. He continues to lead the NBA unless he fell off after tonight, but I'm pretty sure he's still in first in offensive rebounding, even though he's playing 16 minutes a game. If that's not dominance, I don't really know what is.
It's a really funny stat that also just perfectly sums up what's happening right now. Mitchell Robinson's dominance is absolutely incredible. You've talked about how underrated it is and how it has been for so long, how it doesn't get talked about enough. I honestly, I don't even talk about it enough. It's just something that sort of flies under the radar unless you're just watching him. Unless you're just watching him on possessions and you're not just watching the ball, you're not just watching who's guarding the guy with the ball, you're just watching Mitchell Robinson. And then you really see it just from a physical standpoint. I mentioned something that Steve Novak said earlier. He also said this, by the way, I'm enjoying Steve Novak as a broadcaster. And he also said something like about Mitch, like it's another show or something with Mitchell Robinson. And I thought it was such a beautiful way to put it because it's like it's a whole separate game that Mitch is playing when he's working the glass on both sides, really, but especially on the offensive glass. Like he's obviously always fighting for possession early. He's resetting his 3 seconds in the paint so that he's legal whenever he's crashing the offensive glass. He's anticipating when teammates are shooting. He's banging with guys. He's timing his jumps. And he's just so physical that it's just like you can see the exhaustion. You can see the wear on these guys that he's fighting with for rebounds. And it's not a way that you're used to like these guys looking when they're dealing. And he doesn't seem like the most physically imposing guy, but obviously you can just tell these other guys are like, oh man, I got to deal with this Mitchell Robinson guy. This guy's a monster. And he absolutely is. He is single-handedly. Something I want to say is that the Knicks, the last few seasons, we know one of their calling cards was offensive rebounds. They even had an entire approach in place where they were specifically hunting short mid-range shots to draw up rim protectors to loosen their grip on the positioning close to the basket so that Mitch and Precious and previously Isaiah Hartenstein, those guys can all grab offensive rebounds. That was like an intentional strategy that they were deploying. And so now with this free-flowing ball movement offense, we would expect, okay, well, clearly they can't still leverage offensive rebounding in that way. Like that, they had a specific strategy where they were trying to tap into offensive rebounding, and they can't do it now. The Knicks have a higher offensive rebounding percentage currently than they've had in the history of their team, under like at least under Clean the Glass, which is what I looked at. That means a better offensive rebounding percentage than last season, than Mitch and Precious, than Mitch and Hartenstein. Again, like I said, they were specifically trying to tailor and engineer a strategy to create offensive rebounds, and they're getting just as many this season. Obviously, is that going to continue? No, it's not going to continue to that extent. But the point being, a lot of this just comes down to Mitchell Robinson would do this anywhere, under any circumstances, for any team, at any given point in time in the NBA, because he's that good at doing this. It's completely crazy, and he deserves so much more credit for it.
Did you, maybe you saw this already, what do you think his plus minus was in this game in 17 minutes on the court?
I think was it like plus 35 or something ridiculous?
It was plus 40 in 17 minutes.
Okay.
Plus 40 in 17 minutes on the court in a game where he scored 8 points. Like that, if that doesn't just like emphasize the degree to which this was like Division I star against kindergartners, I don't know how else to frame it. Like just completely overwhelming. Something I will continue to watch just because it was such a big talking point for us coming into the year. Like, what will the starting lineup be? And I think it's rightfully become not so big of a talking point just because Mike Brown is actually experimenting with a million different lineups. And I'm have the numbers up now. I don't think this is updated for tonight's game, but coming into this one, they had no lineup over 80 possessions on the season. They have about 10 to 12 with at least 20 on the season. They have something like over 25 with at least 10 possessions on the season. Like it doesn't feel like as big of a deal, but the starting lineup with Mitchell Robinson coming into this game, plus 25 on the season tonight, as you would guess, it was plus 20 in 7.5 minutes on the floor. So it is really working. I want to see it tested against the best teams and specifically the best offenses in the NBA, because I do think the Pacers were able to crack some holes and like just force Cat and Mitch into positions where they had to be very mobile. But he said everything I wanted to say, man. Like he's incredible. Like you just track the number of times, like again, and I know Mike Breen is always so good about emphasizing this, but even when he doesn't get the rebound, that he just keeps the ball alive or forces like a defender to knock it out because they're basically like flagrant fouling him to stop him from getting the rebound that lead to Knicks like 2s or 3s. And what's fun now is like he's again, like picking up from last year, he's just in the best shape of his career. He's running the floor incredibly well to the point that like Jalen is rewarding him. Like he had a play where he got a rebound. Jalen cooked Igor, whatever his name is, on a cross, then engaged Claxton. And then Mitch was there. Like Mitch was there in time to get it back after Brunson was held up briefly. Mitch covered 94 feet. And like Mitch early, like rookie Mitch could have done that last year. Mitch could have done that. Everything in between Mitch is probably huffing and puffing just past half court. Like his cardio makes it that much more deadly. And the Knicks like just need to protect this guy until April, until May, until June. And then they need to pray to God. And it'll take probably going to second apron that they can find the money to keep him, because he is absolutely essential to what makes this team special. And they have this one gear that is Brunson, that is this Mike Brown offense. And then Mitch just brings this entirely different smash mouth element that takes them from great team to a team that I think can win a championship. We appreciate you guys tuning in every day. If you think the Knicks can win a championship, because be sure to subscribe, because we're going to be talking about it all the time. He's XJ. I'm Gavin. We'll catch you real soon right here on Locked On Knicks.